a fishing man out on the lake. All you need is a line and a pole that'll never break.
Hi there, Redneck Preppy here, and today I've got a quick and dirty video on a subject which is actually really near and dear to my heart, and that's shore fishing. So a lot of serious anglers look down on shore fishing as something that kids do, you know, going down to the neighborhood pond and catching some bluegills or something. Or it's, you know, you're one of the poors who can't afford a boat. Maybe you're a guy whose boat is broken, or your friend's boat is broken, or he doesn't trust you with the boat key when he's out of town. Or, you know, just those pretentious fly fishers who've turned throwing a lure into a religion, and, you know, only shore fishing with flies is the proper way of doing things. All that is a load of bunk. Shore fishing can actually be a really fun way of fishing, which is low cost, low effort kind of way of getting out there and enjoying a little bit of the great outdoors. So why go shore fishing in the first place if you have a boat? That's a reasonable question. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. Boats offer advantages that shore fishing can never hope to replicate. You know, chief among them, of course, is that with a boat, you can move around and go to anywhere you want on a body of water. You can go sit out right in the middle and catch some fish if that's your desire. And if you're in a spot where there are no fish, you can just as easily move somewhere else in the hopes of there being fish there, right? Having said that, though, shore fishing actually kind of does confer some of its own advantages, and let me go through them. First of all, almost everyone, I don't care where you live, you could live in the middle of New York City, actually has a spot close to home where they can go fishing. I mean, we all saw that Mike Iaconelli video a couple of years ago where he was basically, you know, shore fishing in the middle of Manhattan and catching fish. You can catch fish wherever you are. It allows you, of course, also to explore waters in a different way. You know, there's an old saying that boat anglers try and get their lures as close to the shore as possible, and shore anglers try and get their lures far away from the shore as possible. Both are true to an extent. Having said that, though, fishing from the shore kind of provides you a different perspective on the water, in the sense that, you know, you're closer to some of that structure and cover that boat anglers really covet, and you can really kind of hit those spots repeatedly and kind of learn what that structure and cover really looks like, or what it's composed of. A lot of times when you're in a boat, maybe you can't get close enough to the shore to find out what is it that you're actually hitting with your lure. You know, is it rock? Is it mud? Is it a vegetation? Is it a combination? When you're fishing from the shore, you might actually be able to see all of that stuff. So, kind of useful to be able to fish from shore as well. Also, there's this reoccurring belief, or persistent belief, I suppose, that you can't really catch very much from shore. And that's absolutely not true. In my years as a shore angler, and I fish both, you know, from a boat and from the shore, I've caught pretty much every single fish available to me from the shore as well as from the boat. And it must be said, I'm not just catching small fish. You know, not long ago I caught like a 4.5 pound smallmouth bass from the shore. It doesn't happen every day, I'm not going to lie to you. You're not going to want to fish a tournament that way, assuming you could. But you can catch large fish. I've caught pike, which, you know, were from yay to yay. Actually, even longer, yeah. You can't even see my hands now. That's how long that damn pike was. And I've also caught other fish like perch and sunfish and catfish, or burbo, whatever you want to call them. Piles of different kinds of fish. So you can actually catch a decent variety of fish from shore. Also, you can catch both freshwater and saltwater fish from shore. If you ever watch the World Fishing Network, there's plenty of shows out there where guys are catching sharks and God knows what else, those ray things from the shore. You know, you can catch fish from the shore. Big fish and a variety of fish, all different kinds of fish. So don't overlook shore fishing as a viable way of catching fish. Another thing I find is that you can fish anytime you want when you're a shore angler. In the back of my Jeep, I always carry a simple tackle bag and a couple of rods and reels, net, and whatever else I may need, where I can literally be driving by a lake, look, and go, hey, I want to fish that. With a boat, you gotta go and get the boat, drive it all the way back, and that's presuming that there is even a launch. That's another thing that there's an advantage for shore anglers, is we don't need boat launches. If you want to go fishing off the shore, you can do that anywhere you want, as long as it's not private property or you have the permission of the property owner to do fishing there. And I think most property owners aren't going to be too upset if you go to the door and just ask them, and if they say yes, great. If not, well, there's plenty of other spots on the shore. So, having said that, the raison d'etre of this video is pieces of gear that sometimes people overlook or don't think properly about when it comes to shore fishing and how to make it easier. Number one thing that if you're a shore angler that you should bring is a spare rod. It's happened to me before, more than a few times, where I go drive all the way out to some remote lake or whatever it may be, and I'm just about to go fishing, and I decide to find out that there's an issue with my rod, or that the rod is broken, whatever it may be. Good example was some years back, I drove out to this remote river, which would have been pointless to have a boat on, but perfect for shore fishing. I get there and I find out that the reel handle wasn't on my rod. Night before, I'd taken the reel apart, oiled and greased it, because I think it might have been the first time I'd actually taken that rod out that year. When I drove all the way out there, I found out that I didn't actually put the damn reel thing handle back on. Wasted trip. Believe me, trying to hand bomb a line in from a river from your rod and reel, it's actually a lot less fun than you think it is, and a lot less useful. So always bring a spare rod with you. And when it comes to rods, if you can afford it, to go and buy some specialized rods just for shore fishing, buying collapsible rods is not a bad idea either. If depending on your loadout, you can literally have everything in one bag and not have to bring rods and reels through heavy brush, let's say, if you have to whack your way into a particular body of water. I have found from personal experience it can be a pain in the rear to bring a couple of rods and reels through heavy brush, because those branches will catch on everything, including your line, your hook, if you've already pre-hooked, all that stuff. So collapsible rod and reels aren't exactly a bad idea. That's how I primarily fish shore fishing, when I'm going into the brush to try and find something, a lake or a river that I want to fish. Number 2, bug dope. Now, this is not a sponsored video. This is a product that I absolutely love. Before I get into it, though, if you've ever spent any time in the brush, particularly at certain times of the year, like earlier in the year, just after spring, early summer, whatever it may be, bugs will be your nightmare, to the point where you think there's an unofficial forest air force that's been sent out to attack you. Believe me on this one, there's nothing that makes your life more miserable while you're fishing, particularly from the shore, than when you're being destroyed by mosquitoes, gnats, black flies, no-see-ums, whatever you want to call them. What I use, and again, not a sponsored video, but I like this product so much that I never hesitate to bring it up, is Ben's Wilderness Formula. You can get this in 2 strengths. This is the 30% DEET. They also apparently make 100% DEET. I don't typically see this being sold in stores. This is usually sold by outfitters and places like that. But if you do see this in the store, pick it up. It's apparently made in New Hampshire, which I didn't know. I thought it was actually a Canadian product, but this is an American product. This stuff kicks Major League ass. Now, it's powerful. I mean, even the 30% stuff is powerful to the point where you spray this on, have relations with your wife, you may have kids with gills. You know, that's how powerful this stuff is. But well worth it. So like I said, you can get it in the 30 and the 100%. So next up, in what I consider to be pretty essential gear for shore anglers, are hip waders. I know they're the province of those pretentious fly fishers that I brought up earlier, but they're actually kind of really useful when you're a shore angler, because sometimes you have to get out into the water to where the fish are. Remember, boat guys try and get in as close, shore anglers try and get their lures as far as possible. Waders will help you do that. Now, if I do suggest anything, it's spend a little bit of money on those hip waders. There's few levels of hell worse than wearing cheap hip waders for an extended period of time. What I would suggest is, at a minimum, make sure that if you buy the one-piece neoprene or rubber hip waders with the attached boots, make sure that the boots themselves are made out of a soft and pliable rubber. They're not going to like burst or get cut any more easily, but they're a lot easier to put on, which is something that I've learned the hard way. I had a pair of hip waders that thankfully finally died last year, and I bought some new ones, and holy cow, the difference was incredible. Just putting them on was much easier, because when those things like get hard and you try and ram your feet into those boots, life is hell. So, you know, consider that. Or if you want to spend some real money, you can always get the socks waders, the ones with don't have a boot attached, and then you just buy a pair of wading shoes or wading boots for them. Fly fishers use those a lot. Those are great. They're expensive though, so keep that in mind if you want to spend money on hip waders. Not a lot of money on hip waders. One thing, just kind of as an aside for hip waders, because I mentioned trying to get your lure out as far as possible. Also remember to fish parallel to the shoreline, because fish do tend to get close to the shore at times, so you don't want to just keep bombing out. Fishing to the side is a good idea too. Good shoes. If you're not, when you're not using your hip waders, you should have good shoes or hiking boots, hiking shoes, whatever it may be. You are going to be busting brush occasionally to get to where it is that you want to go. And believe me, a good pair of shoes or boots are absolutely essential. The last thing you want to do is have your feet hurt at the end of the day, or hurt your feet out there when you could have wore some proper shoes that would have mitigated or prevented that. So that's another thing that you want to spend some money on too. A backpack. Now, a lot of guys and gals, I don't mean to be sexist here, will bring their tackle bag with them. I find that to be kind of a mistake, because tackle bags tend to get filled up with as much room as they have. So if you bring a backpack, it's probably going to be smaller than your tackle bag, and it'll actually be a lot easier to carry, because again, when you're busting through that brush, carrying 2 rods in one hand, you got your tackle bag in the other, it kind of makes it difficult to get through, heavier bush or whatever it may be. A backpack, at least it's slung on your back. It's kind of out of the way then, and I find it much more convenient for me personally to use a backpack rather than an actual full-out tackle bag. And the backpack will serve you fine whether you're fishing a river, a lake, whatever it may be, a boardwalk. It's a lot less bulky for you. Now, this may be actually the most important thing, is a proper selection of lures. There is always that desire to bring every single lure possible, because you don't know what you're going to need when you get there. I find that you're going to find that some classes of lures are far more useful to you than others. And what I mean by that is you're going to find that horizontal lures are more useful than vertical lures a lot of the time. And I'll explain that just in case you don't understand what I mean. So because you're fishing from the shore, you're going to be fishing out. So good lures are oftentimes things like top waters, jerk baits, spinner baits, buzz baits, things like that. Things that travel vertically across the water or through the water, rather than things that go vertical, things like jigs or plastic worms, whatever it may be. Because oftentimes you're not going to be able to get to the depth of water where a vertical presentation is going to make a lot of sense to you. There may be times when you're going to be fishing from a bridge or boardwalk, whatever it may be, and those lures, the vertical lures, will make some sense to you. But if you're going to be fishing things like rivers and lakes, streams, whatever it may be, I think you're going to find that vertical lures are going to be more useful to you. When I go shore fishing, I tend to bring a selection of topwaters, crankbaits, jerk baits, spinner baits, buzz baits, things like that. And that immediately lightens your load because you're not carrying Plano boxes full of lures that aren't going to be of much use to you. I rarely bring out plastics that I'm going to fish vertically, like in finesse fishing, or jigs, things like that. I really don't use those often when I go shore fishing, so I feel comfortable either not bringing very many of them, maybe like one or two of each, or I don't bring them at all, because generally the places that I go, they're not going to be of much use to me. So a proper selection of lures, I think, is pretty essential. And you don't have to bring a pile of lures of each class. You don't have to bring a full Plano tray of top waters or jerk baits. You could probably get away with like one or two Plano trays, the larger ones, full of a selection of different kinds of lures, the top waters and the buzz baits, the spinner baits, whatever it may be. And that immediately lightens your load right off the hop. So proper selection of lures. I know that it's kind of hard to predict what lures you're going to need if you're fishing a new body of water, but I find that those lures are probably usually the best. And last but not least, water. Where you may be fishing, you might be out in the sun all day. In a boat, it's easy to bring water with you. You've got a cooler, maybe, whatever it may be. But make sure to bring some water with you, in a thermostat or whatever it may be. It can go in that backpack because you're only carrying a couple of Plano trays in there. Sunscreen, okay. Speaking not last but not least, also bring some sunscreen too, because believe me, that sun can beat down on you, particularly if you're wading in the water. You're literally like getting the sun from above, and you're also getting it reflected from below to you. And I've paid the price more than a few times where I didn't put on sunscreen and I was wading into the water with nothing more than a t-shirt and my hip waders, and I paid the price with a little too much sun exposure, particularly with this bald head. Anyway, that's it. Like I said, it was just going to be a quick and dirty little video on why I think you should go shore fishing and some of the things that you should bring. Other things are fairly obvious to standard fishing equipment, like pliers and a bucket and whatever else may be that you need. If you're sport fishing, you don't need a bucket. You're just releasing like I always do. But a bucket you may need as well. Just the standard fishing stuff that you already know about. At any rate, that's it. That's all I got for today. I hope you found the video at least marginally informative, entertaining. Well, that's up to you. As always, you can find links to my Twitter and Facebook pages in the description below. If you have your own suggestions for gear that is absolutely essential for shore fishing, leave it in the comments below, man. I would love to hear it if I forgot something, or you've got a different take on what kind of gear you should bring. Please, by all means, share. I'm more than interested in learning about it. As well, if you found the video useful, feel free to give it a like, share it, subscribe to the channel if you'd like to, and click that bell notification, because it seems that without that, there's a limited chance you'll actually find out about new videos if you do subscribe. At any rate, have a great day. I hope you have tight lines. Take care.